Have you ever stopped, even for a fleeting moment, to truly ponder what it signifies to age with grace and a sense of purpose? What happens deep within your soul when you find yourself wrestling with the crushing weight of loneliness, the sharp sting of loss, and the relentless march of time? This video isn't just about the simple act of getting older. It's about the profound and powerful odyssey of embracing the twilight years of life and living them to their absolute fullest. Prepare to meet Robert Bob Miller, a resilient 62-year-old man who has navigated the turbulent waters of aging, experiencing both the soaring joys and the heart-wrenching sorrows that come with it. From the devastating loss of his beloved wife, Susan, to the creeping sense of isolation as his children build their own independent lives, Bob's story is intensely personal, yet it strikes a chord deep within so many of us as we face similar trials and triumphs as the years advance. Why should you invest your time and watch this video until the very end? Because Bob's experience isn't just his own isolated tale. It's a mirror reflecting the universal experiences that many of us will inevitably confront as we journey through our later years. Through his poignant journey, you'll glean invaluable insights into how to cope with profound loss, forge new and meaningful connections, and construct a fulfilling life even in the quiet solitude. You'll uncover the priceless wisdom he acquired from his relationship with Karen, a remarkable woman who unexpectedly entered his life and guided him through the intricate complexities of aging with unwavering strength and resilience. Furthermore, Bob's story bravely illuminates the difficult decisions that seniors often face, such as the agonizing choice of moving to a nursing home, and how to approach these monumental decisions with peace, unwavering confidence, and an open, accepting heart. By the time this video concludes, you'll walk away with a deeper, more profound understanding of how to cherish the relationships that truly matter, embrace your hard-won independence, and seize full control of your life as you continue to age. Whether you're in your 60s, 70s, or even beyond, Bob's inspiring story will motivate you to make the absolute most of your later years, no matter the formidable obstacles life may hurl your way. Don't let this opportunity slip through your fingers. Seize the chance to gain invaluable insights from someone who has truly lived through it all and emerged even stronger on the other side. If you haven't already, I wholeheartedly recommend subscribing to this channel and hitting that notification bell so you won't miss any of my future videos. Your incredible support means the world to me, and if you found value in this video, you can help me continue spreading these vital lessons by giving it a thumbs up and sharing it with others. If you deeply connect with the theme presented in this video, please leave a 1 in the comments below. If not, feel free to comment 0 to let me know how I can improve and create even better videos for you in the future. Now, let's delve into Bob's deeply moving story. I had always envisioned my retirement as a serene chapter in my life, a time when I could finally unwind and savor the rewards of my years of hard work. I had meticulously planned for it, knowing that the future, in its relentless march, would eventually arrive. But as life so often does, it hurled an unexpected curveball my way. I was forced to retire earlier than I had ever anticipated. Thankfully, I had always been mindful of my spending, maintaining a tight grip on my finances and diligently saving for a rainy day. So, financially, I was managing okay, but there was a profound emptiness, a heavy silence, that I hadn't foreseen, hadn't planned for. There was a time, not so long ago, when my family was my entire universe. My son, Mike, and my daughter, Jen, both had families of their own now. Their lives were stable, and they were flourishing in their own unique ways. I was immensely proud of them, of course, but a part of me, a deep, nostalgic part, yearned for the days when the house echoed with laughter and the tiny pitter-patter of little feet. Over time, though, the house grew quieter, the vibrant energy that once filled every corner slowly dissipated. A few years ago, Susan, my beloved wife, my rock, passed away after a long and arduous illness. That devastating loss ripped a hole in my heart, a gaping wound that never seemed to fully heal. As time relentlessly marched on, my children, who were once so close, became more and more absorbed in their own demanding lives. Their visits became less frequent, and with each passing day, I found myself alone more often than not. One desolate afternoon, I sat slumped on the sofa, enveloped by the oppressive stillness of my empty house. The silence seemed to swallow me whole, leaving me with nothing but the deafening sound of my own heartbeat and the faint, distant hum of the world outside. The rooms, once vibrant with life and warmth, now seemed to echo the profound loneliness I felt, a chilling emptiness that seeped deep within my bones, a bitter pang I couldn't ignore. As I sat there, desperately trying to push those suffocating feelings aside, the shrill ring of the phone pierced the silence. It was Mike. His voice, usually so jovial, came through urgent and hurried. "Dad, are you staying home tonight? There's some urgent work, and I might not be able to come by," he said, his tone laced with a palpable worry. I felt a sharp flicker of disappointment stab at my chest, but I tried to suppress it, to bury it deep down. I understood. Mike had a family of his own, a demanding job, and a life brimming with responsibilities. I didn't want to burden him with my own crushing loneliness. So, I replied with a forced calmness, "It's fine, Mike. Don't worry about me. Just take care of your things. I'm alright here." I hung up the phone, feeling a hollow ache expand inside me, as if the world had slipped away, leaving me stranded behind. I had toiled so hard all those years, poured my heart and soul into providing for my family, only to find that now, in my retirement, with Susan gone and the children living their own independent lives, I was left to face the deafening quiet, utterly alone. The emptiness seemed to deepen with each agonizing day. The following day, my kind neighbor, Tom, stopped by for a visit. Tom and I were around the same age, and we had always enjoyed our easygoing conversations. But this time, there was an unspoken heaviness in the air, a shared understanding of the burdens of our stage of life. He sat down beside me, and after a few moments of heavy silence, he sighed deeply. "So, it's just you here now, huh?" he asked, his gaze sweeping around the room, his eyes scanning the emptiness that so perfectly mirrored my own desolate feelings. I nodded slowly, unable to find the words to express the profound loneliness that gripped me. His words hung in the air between us, thick and heavy like a suffocating weight. "Same for me," he continued, his voice tinged with a deep sadness that struck me to my very core. "My wife is busy with her own things, and the kids are doing their own thing." I could feel the raw sorrow in his voice, and it mirrored the aching emptiness that had become my constant companion. Tom's words about the pervasive loneliness at this stage of life felt like a cold, hard truth, an inescapable reality I couldn't outrun. "You have to think about it, Bob. What if one day you're all alone?" he asked, his question cutting through the oppressive stillness like a sharp knife. I could feel my heart plummet into my stomach. The very thought of being completely alone in this large, echoing house, with no one to talk to, no one to simply check in on me, filled me with a profound dread. His haunting question echoed and re-echoed in my mind, what if I'm left completely alone? What will I do? I tried to shake off the unsettling thought, but it clung to me, a persistent shadow haunting my every waking moment. A few days later, Jen came by with her young son, Ryan. She brought some of his favorite childhood dishes, perhaps hoping it would lead to a longer, more meaningful visit. But as soon as Jen stepped through the door, she rushed to explain, "Dad, I'm just dropping by to let Ryan see you for a little bit, but then I have to go pick up Tom." Her hurried tone, her eyes darting back and forth, and the worried look etched on Ryan's innocent face broke my heart into a million pieces. I tried to force a smile, to hide the deep ache in my chest, but it felt like an impossible task. "Go ahead, honey. Take care of what you need to do. I'm fine here," I said, though the words felt hollow and meaningless the moment they left my lips. Jen barely had time to sit down before she was up again, rushing out the door with little Ryan in tow. I stood at the door, watching them leave, the sound of their hurried footsteps slowly fading away into the silence. The house felt even emptier now, the silence more oppressive, more suffocating than before. I couldn't stop the tears that welled up in my eyes, nor the crushing feeling of abandonment that settled so heavily in my heart. That night, as I lay in bed, The haunting question from earlier echoed in my mind with painful clarity: what should I do if I'm left completely alone? I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that I couldn't continue like this. I couldn't keep drifting through this quiet, lonely existence. A few days later, I met up with Tom at the park for a leisurely walk. We sat on a weathered bench, watching people stroll by, their lives moving in a vibrant blur around us. I turned to Tom, my heart heavy with all that had been weighing on me. "You were right about everything," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said. At our age, if we're left alone, how do we manage?" Tom nodded slowly in understanding, his eyes soft with empathy. "I've thought about it too," he replied. "There are a few things we need to prepare for in advance." "We can wait until the last moment to worry," Tom said firmly, his voice steady, almost reassuring. "The most important thing is to make sure we're financially stable. We need enough to cover food and essentials so we're not left struggling." I nodded in agreement, the truth of his words undeniable. Without financial security, aging could become a brutal battle. I had always prided myself on being careful with my money, but I knew now that I needed to think more strategically about what the future would hold: medical expenses, unexpected emergencies, and the inevitable unknowns that always seem to arise at the most inconvenient times. Tom continued, "With no spouse or kids nearby, it's up to us to take care of ourselves." Those words resonated deeply within me. It was a hard truth, a stark reality, but it was the reality we both faced. I felt a surge of determination rise within me. Maybe the future didn't have to be so bleak, so desolate. Maybe there was still time to prepare, to take control, to build a plan that would allow me to live out my later years with dignity and purpose. But it was crystal clear that I had to act now, before the silence became more than I could bear. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment one below to let me know that you are still here with me. Living alone, you come to a stark realization: despite all the love and care from your children, they can't always be there for you when you need them most. It's a hard truth, one that hits you like a cold gust of wind on an otherwise warm day. "We have to become more independent," Tom said, and those words echo deeply within me. We have to take care of ourselves, stay active, and never isolate ourselves. It was as if he was speaking directly to the deepest fears I held. For so long, I had devoted my life to my children, caring for them, putting their needs before my own. But in doing so, I had inadvertently neglected the quality of my own life. The years had slipped by, and all I had to show for it was a life spent in front of the television, sitting in a room that felt more like a prison than a home. I was existing, but not truly living, and the gnawing isolation was slowly taking its toll on me, eroding my spirit. The realization struck me like a physical blow. I couldn't keep living this way. My health, my happiness, everything depended on me making a change. It was so easy to sink into the false comfort of routine and let time slip away unnoticed, but I knew deep down that this passive path would only lead to one inevitable outcome: a slow decline into poor health and profound loneliness. I couldn't let that happen. So, I made a conscious choice to change my deeply ingrained habits, no matter how daunting it seemed at first. Each morning, I forced myself to walk to the park, just a short distance, but it was something, a tangible step toward regaining control of my life. And then, in the evenings, I found a sliver of solace at the community center, playing chess and chatting with other seniors. At first, it felt awkward, and I could feel the heavy weight of loneliness trying to pull me back into my isolated shell. But little by little, I started to build new friendships, and I could feel my life slowly becoming richer and more fulfilling. Still, despite all the newfound activities, there was a persistent, gnawing emptiness that stubbornly refused to go away. Every night, as I lay in bed, staring blankly at the ceiling, the same haunting question echoed in my mind: who will be there for me when I'm sick? When I desperately need someone to talk to or help me through the inevitable hard times? The deafening silence in the room seemed to amplify those deep-seated fears, and the more I pondered it, the more unsettled I became. I had always been content, even comfortable, living alone, but now I couldn't shake the unsettling thought that maybe, just maybe, I needed someone by my side, not necessarily to take care of me, but simply to be there, to share in the quiet moments and the inevitable burdens of getting older. But then, a wave of guilt would wash over me, a cold, unwelcome tide. My dear Susan had only passed away recently. I felt like any step toward finding companionship again would be a profound betrayal of her cherished memory. How could I ever truly let go of her enduring presence, her unwavering love? Yet, as much as I tried to ignore it, the loneliness within me grew stronger with each passing day, a relentless ache in my soul. One day, after much internal hesitation and a silent battle with my conscience, I finally found the courage to talk to my old friend Tom about these conflicting emotions. He listened intently, his gaze knowing, a deep understanding reflected in his kind eyes. His thoughtful silence spoke volumes. "I get it, Bob," he said softly, his voice filled with genuine compassion. "After my wife passed, I felt the same way. We don't need someone to depend on, but we desperately need someone to talk to, someone to share the highs and lows of this unpredictable life with, someone to offer a hand of support when we need it most." His simple words offered a surprising kind of comfort, a solace I hadn't even realized I was so desperately missing. He was right. I wasn't looking for someone to replace my beloved Susan, but simply to ease the persistent ache of solitude that had been steadily growing inside me, threatening to consume me entirely. Slowly, tentatively, I began to open my heart to the possibility of finding companionship again. And that's when I met Eleanor. She was a remarkable elderly woman who also lived alone, and her vibrant, optimistic personality was like a breath of fresh, invigorating air. We quickly bonded over our shared experiences of living far from our children and the profound loneliness that often accompanied it. Eleanor possessed an incredible spirit of adventure, a contagious zest for life that I hadn't felt within myself in years. She was always out exploring, visiting new places, and engaging in activities that reminded me just how much of life I had been passively missing out on. Her presence brought a much-needed joy back into my life, and our conversations, filled with shared laughter and deep understanding, became something I eagerly looked forward to every single day. As time gently unfolded, our relationship deepened. We began to do more things together: grocery shopping, cooking simple meals, taking leisurely walks in the park, and simply enjoying each other's quiet company. We never explicitly labeled our connection, but it didn't need a formal definition. The unspoken bond we shared was more than enough. Eleanor became my cherished companion in every sense of the word, and our once empty home was now filled with warmth, lively conversation, and the gentle rhythm of two lives intertwined. One quiet night, when I fell ill with a high fever, I was starkly reminded just how much having someone by your side can truly mean. Eleanor was there instantly, her genuine concern for my well-being shining through in every thoughtful gesture. She rushed to get me over-the-counter medicine and gently cooled my forehead with a damp cloth, her hands both gentle and firm in their comforting care. She even called Mike, urging him to take me to the local hospital. When Mike finally arrived and witnessed Eleanor so diligently caring for me, he was visibly surprised. His worry for me was evident in his furrowed brow, but I reassured him, offering a faint smile. "I didn't want to worry you, son. You've got your own busy life, and Eleanor is taking excellent care of me." Mike seemed somewhat torn, but his gratitude toward Eleanor was clear in his grateful eyes. He insisted on taking me to the doctor, and though it turned out to be just a stubborn fever, the simple act of being genuinely cared for made all the difference in the world. That night, as I lay in my own bed, I watched Eleanor quietly take care of everything, ensuring I was comfortable. The house was no longer just a place where I passively existed. It had become a true home, filled with love, tenderness, and the comforting presence of companionship. The profound emptiness that had once defined my solitary life had been replaced by something far more meaningful, far more profound. I slowly realized that the precious companionship we shared wasn't about replacing the irreplaceable love I had lost with Susan, but about discovering a new kind of love, one that was quiet, steady, and deeply comforting. It wasn't the passionate, whirlwind love of youth, but it was a mature love that brought a profound sense of peace, unwavering security, and a gentle warmth to the twilight of my life. Eleanor was no longer just a companion. She had become the radiant light that had pierced through my long darkness, reminding me that even in our twilight years, we don't have to face the inevitable journey alone. As time continued its relentless march, the intricate complexities of life began to unfold in unexpected and often bittersweet ways. One ordinary day, as I was quietly going about my daily routine, Eleanor received a phone call that would ultimately change everything. Her son, her beloved child, was getting married, and he desperately wanted her to come back and live with him and his new family. When Eleanor shared the significant news with me, a sudden surge of bitterness, sharp and unwelcome, flooded my heart. But I fought hard to keep my tumultuous emotions in check, forcing a weak smile that I hoped would mask the profound sadness that was slowly consuming me from the inside out. "Your son is getting married? That's absolutely wonderful news, Eleanor," I said, desperately trying to sound genuinely supportive. "It's a perfect time for you to be with your children." But as Eleanor looked at me, her usually bright eyes filled with a deep uncertainty, I could see the internal battle raging within her. Her voice, barely above a whisper, betrayed the depth of her conflicted emotions. "But I've grown so accustomed to being here with you, Bob," she said, the weight of her simple words hanging heavily in the air between us like an unspoken plea. I knew in that moment that her heart was breaking, torn between the strong pull of family and the deep, comforting bond we had so unexpectedly shared. The quiet intimacy of our life together had become a source of immense comfort to both of us, and the very thought of being uprooted stirred a deep, profound ache within me. Taking a deep, steadying breath, I tried to gather my scattered thoughts, knowing that I needed to be the one to make this difficult transition easier for her. "Eleanor, you need to be with your son. As a mother, that's where you truly belong. I'll be alright here on my own. Please, don't worry about me," I said, though my voice trembled ever so slightly as I spoke the words. Inside, however, the weight of those selfless words felt like a heavy stone lodged deep within my chest. I desperately wanted her to stay. I wanted to hold on to the precious warmth and comforting familiarity of our shared time. But I knew, deep down, with a painful certainty, that this was what she truly needed, what would ultimately bring her the greatest joy. After several days of quiet contemplation and heartfelt discussions, Eleanor made the difficult decision to return to her son. With a heavy heart, I drove her to the bus stop, my emotions a complex mixture of deep love, profound sadness, and quiet resignation. Watching her board the bus, I felt as though a significant piece of my own heart was being left behind. As the bus slowly pulled away from the curb, I stood there, frozen, feeling as though the world had suddenly gone silent, leaving me stranded in a hollow, echoing emptiness. Returning to my now empty house, the silence was deafening, a stark and oppressive void. It was a profound loneliness, a depth of solitude I hadn't anticipated, a feeling far more intense than I could have ever imagined. I found myself grappling with the harsh reality of what so many elderly individuals must face in their later years, utter solitude. The unsettling thought of being completely alone in my aging years began to seep into my mind, and tears welled up in my eyes as I muttered to myself, struggling to make sense of the aching void that Eleanor's departure had left within me. Each morning, I continued with my familiar routine, exercising, meeting with my old friends, but the palpable absence of her comforting companionship was a constant, aching reminder of my loss. My children, Mike and Jen, still faithfully checked in on me, but their own lives were so full and demanding, and I didn't want to burden them with the heavy weight of my persistent loneliness. They had their own families, their own responsibilities, and though they made a genuine effort to connect, I could sense the subtle distance that had grown between us over time. Every time they called, I reassured them, saying I was fine, but deep down, I felt the painful truth: the loneliness was steadily growing, sinking deeper and deeper into my soul. It was one particularly dreary afternoon at the community center, surrounded by familiar faces but feeling more profoundly isolated than ever before, that I inadvertently overheard a conversation that would ultimately change the entire course of my future. A small group of people was discussing the possibility of moving into a nursing home. The idea struck me like a sudden bolt of lightning. Maybe this is the answer, I thought with a flicker of unexpected hope. Maybe this is the place where I can finally find some semblance of peace and much-needed connection. The very next day, I called Mike, hoping, with a hesitant optimism, that he would understand my reasoning. There was a long, pregnant pause on the other end of the line before he finally spoke, his voice laced with a palpable concern. "Dad, are you absolutely sure you want to move into a nursing home? Doesn't that kind of place feel cold?" His hesitant words gave me pause, but I knew, with a growing sense of conviction, what I had to say. "Mike, it's not about the coldness. It's about finding a place where I can truly be at peace for the long term. You and Jen have your own busy lives. I don't want to be a burden to you. At least in a nursing home, there are other people around. I won't be so utterly alone." Mike hesitated again, and I could clearly hear the worry in his voice as he promised to discuss my idea with Jen. A few days later, they both came over, sitting together on the familiar living room couch, their faces drawn with concern. Jen spoke first, her voice thick with emotion. "Dad, we understand that it's hard for you to be on your own, but are you absolutely sure a nursing home is the right place for you? What if you end up feeling even more isolated there?" Their genuine concern warmed my heart, but I knew I had to stand firm in my decision. "You don't need to worry about me, kids. I've thought this through very carefully. I need a place where I can enjoy my later years in peace. A nursing home isn't the worst option. It's not perfect, but it's certainly better than being completely alone here. You both have your own lives to live, and I don't want to impose on that." Their subsequent silence spoke volumes, a mixture of worry and reluctant acceptance. But after a long, thoughtful pause, they finally agreed. "Dad, if this is truly what you want, we'll respect your choice. But we promise, we'll visit you often," Mike promised, and a wave of immense relief washed over me. I wasn't completely alone in this significant decision. A few months later, I made the move into a comfortable nursing home in the quiet suburbs. It was a beautiful facility, boasting vibrant flower gardens, inviting activity rooms, and plenty of other seniors around my age. On my very first day, I took a tentative walk around the sprawling yard and met Mr. Henderson, a kind, long-term resident. He welcomed me with a warm, genuine smile and graciously offered to show me around the facility. He introduced me to a few other new faces, making the initial transition a little less daunting. That evening, as I lay in my new bed, gazing out the window at the vast expanse of the night sky, I felt a strange, unexpected sense of calm settle over me. It wasn't the familiar comfort of my own home, and it certainly wasn't the life I had once envisioned for myself, but it was undeniably a new beginning. I had already made a few friendly acquaintances, and the prospect of companionship, however modest, eased the heavy weight of my persistent loneliness. 6 months gently passed, and I gradually settled into a comfortable routine. I ate regular, nutritious meals, made an effort to exercise, and spent a good amount of time socializing with my newfound friends. I no longer faced the crushing solitude that I had once so deeply feared. I had found a new rhythm to my days, a new sense of purpose, however simple. Though it wasn't the vibrant life I had once imagined for my retirement, it was a life I could live with, peaceful, connected, and for the first time in a long while, filled with a quiet sense of hope. Life had become a peaceful, predictable rhythm, filled with the simple pleasures of small moments, a friendly game of chess, enjoying the quiet solitude of a sunny afternoon, and engaging in easygoing chats with my new friends. These small, daily routines had become my unexpected sanctuary. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, I felt a sense of comfort and security that had been absent for far too long. Mike and Jen, my devoted children, still called frequently, their voices always filled with a gentle concern about my adjustment to living alone. They seemed to worry endlessly, even though I assured them every single time I'm doing well here. Nothing's missing. You really don't need to worry about me." I tried my best to ease their worried minds, but deep down, I knew they couldn't fully comprehend the quiet peace I had found in this unexpected solitude. I had slowly learned to embrace it, to appreciate its unexpected gifts, to feel grounded in its gentle embrace. But then, one seemingly ordinary afternoon, the world as I knew it suddenly shifted on its axis. After a quiet and solitary lunch, I sat outside in the warm sunshine, feeling the gentle warmth on my face, letting the simple beauty of the moment wash over me. The shrill ring of the phone shattered the peaceful tranquility. As I answered, I heard Mike's voice crackling through the receiver, filled with an unsettling urgency. There was a distinct tremor in his tone that immediately made my chest tighten with a sudden, inexplicable dread. "Dad, I've got some bad news," he said, his voice barely controlled, a raw emotion I rarely heard from him. "Mrs. Henderson was in a serious car accident, and she's in the hospital. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment below to let me know that you are still here with me." The words hit me with the force of a physical blow. My heart skipped a frantic beat, and for a terrifying moment, I couldn't breathe. The phone nearly slipped from my numb fingers as shock paralyzed me. I had to consciously steady myself, gripping the edge of the chair, struggling to process the gravity of what he was saying. "What happened? How is she?" I stammered, my voice barely a whisper, a cold wave of panic beginning to take root in my chest. Mike's voice faltered as he spoke again, his words heavy with concern. "I just got the news myself and rushed over here. Do you want to come to the hospital?" I felt as though the solid ground beneath me had suddenly disappeared, leaving me adrift in a sea of fear and uncertainty. The devastating news about Mrs. Henderson, someone who had become a constant and comforting presence in my life, someone I had grown to care for deeply, was almost too much to bear. In that moment of profound shock, I couldn't think clearly, couldn't reason. I abruptly hung up the phone and frantically called the nursing home staff to arrange for immediate transportation, my mind racing with a torrent of uncontrollable thoughts. How could something so tragic happen to her? Now, the last time I had seen her, just this morning, I had smiled and told her to take care of herself. And now this. The vivid image of her kind, smiling face haunted me, and all I could think of was how incredibly fragile life truly is. When I finally arrived at the bustling hospital, I saw Mike and Jen standing anxiously outside the emergency room. The look on their faces, so filled with worry, so deeply concerned, suddenly made everything feel overwhelmingly real, terrifyingly tangible. Mike gently helped me sit down in a nearby chair, his own hand shaking slightly as he guided me. "Dad," he said, his voice heavy with dread, "the doctors are doing everything they possibly can, but the situation isn't looking good." The crushing weight of his words pressed down on me, stealing my breath. I could barely bring myself to look at him, my heart pounding relentlessly in my chest as I stared blankly at the ominous red light blinking above the surgical room door. All I could do was pray, to desperately hope against all hope that Mrs. Henderson, this strong, resilient woman who had touched so many lives with her kindness, would somehow find a way to survive this terrible ordeal. The minutes dragged on with agonizing slowness, each one feeling like an eternity. Time itself seemed to slow down, the air thick with palpable worry and gnawing fear. Then, finally, the heavy door creaked open, and the doctor emerged, his expression grim. I almost lunged toward him, desperate for any scrap of news, any glimmer of hope. "How is she?" I asked, my voice a mere breath, my heart pounding in my throat, a frantic drum against my ribs. The doctor's face was grave, his eyes filled with a weary exhaustion. He slowly shook his head, and I felt a cold, sickening dread seep into my very bones. "The injuries are severe," he said softly, his voice barely audible. "Prepare for the worst." Those devastating words landed like a brutal punch to the gut, leaving me breathless, numb with disbelief. I could barely hold myself upright as Mike gently guided me back into the hard plastic chair. I could feel the world spinning around me, everything blurring into a hazy, indistinct fog. And then, moments later, a nurse emerged from behind the closed doors, silently pushing Mrs. Henderson's still, lifeless form down the long, sterile hallway. My heart lurched violently in my chest as I saw her pale, unmoving body, a mere shadow of the vibrant woman I had known and loved. She had been so full of life, so full of spirit, and now she looked so fragile, so utterly helpless. The sight of her like that shattered something deep within me, something fundamental. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I reached out instinctively, my hand trembling, and gently took her cold hand in mine, feeling the stark, horrifying contrast between her usual warmth and the icy grip of her now lifeless skin. "Please, Mrs. Henderson," I whispered, my voice breaking with unspeakable grief, my eyes overflowing with hot, stinging tears. "Please don't leave me. You promised. We promised we'd spend our time here together. You can't leave me now." For a fleeting moment, I dared to hope, a desperate, foolish hope, that she might somehow hear me, that she might respond. Her eyelids fluttered open, just for a brief, agonizing second. But no words came. A single tear escaped her eye, a solitary drop that felt like a sharp dagger piercing my already broken heart. In that devastating instant, my world crumbled around me, shattering into a million irreparable pieces. I knelt beside her, my hands trembling uncontrollably as I clutched her cold hand, tears streaming down my face in uncontrollable waves. "Please," I cried, my voice thick with raw sorrow, filled with utter desperation. "Please don't go. I can't live without you. If you leave me, I don't know what I'll do." Mike and Jen stood silently by, their faces etched with profound sadness, their eyes filled with the same overwhelming helplessness that consumed me. They knew there was nothing they could say, nothing they could possibly do to ease the unbearable pain that ripped through my soul in that agonizing moment. That night, the doctor confirmed our deepest fears. Mrs. Henderson's condition had tragically worsened. She was now critical, clinging precariously to life. I couldn't bear to leave her side, not for a single second. I stayed there in the sterile hospital room, hoping, praying silently, willing her with every fiber of my being to find the strength to hold on, to fight. At one point, her eyes flickered open again, and her hand, so cold and frail, reached weakly for mine. I held it tightly, desperately not wanting to let go, clinging to this last vestige of connection. It was all I could do, all I had left to give her. Her grip on my hand tightened ever so slightly, just a fraction more than before, and she struggled to speak, her breath shallow and labored. I could see the fierce fight in her gentle face, the last ounce of her strength trying to reach out. "Mr. Miller." "Lie well," she whispered, her voice barely a breath, so fragile, so quiet. And then, with one final, soft exhale, her hand relaxed in mine, and her tired eyes fluttered closed for the very last time. A part of me wanted to scream, to beg her to wake up, to stay with me just for a moment longer. But she was gone. In that painful, inevitable silence, I was frozen, utterly paralyzed by the crushing weight of the moment. My heart felt as though it had shattered into 1,000 jagged pieces, and I couldn't draw a single breath. "Mrs. Henderson, don't go," I whispered, my voice thick with inconsolable sorrow, filled with utter desperation. "Please don't leave me." But there was no answer, only the deafening silence of her absence, a void that filled the room, colder and more desolate than any winter's night. I can't find the adequate words to describe the profound emptiness that overwhelmed me then. It felt as though my very soul had been ripped from my body, leaving behind nothing but a hollow, aching shell. Mrs. Henderson was more than just a friend. She was the last person who truly cared about me, who saw me for all that I was, flaws and all, and who loved me unconditionally. And now, she was gone. The world suddenly seemed crueler, colder somehow, and I was left to stumble through the days that followed in a thick haze of grief, a suffocating darkness that clung to me, smothering any chance of joy or peace. The grief was all-consuming, and no matter how many well-meaning people tried to comfort me, it only seemed to amplify the crushing loneliness. In the quiet confines of the nursing home, the days blurred together, each one feeling achingly empty without her vibrant presence, as though there was no purpose to the endless hours that stretched out before me. My kind friends and my fellow residents noticed the stark change in me. I didn't need them to utter a single word. I could see it clearly reflected in their eyes, the pity, the quiet sadness. They didn't quite know how to express their condolences, how to bridge the vast chasm of my grief. They sat with me in comfortable silence, but no words of comfort, however well-intentioned, could ever truly heal the deep wound that had been so brutally carved into my heart. At our age, losses are far more than just fleeting memories. They become integral parts of ourselves, irreplaceable pieces of our very soul. Once something precious is gone, no matter how desperately we try to fill that gaping void, it remains forever empty, a constant, aching reminder of what we've lost. Mike and Jen came by often, bringing their young children in the hopeful expectation that their innocent laughter and boundless energy might somehow lighten my heavy spirit. But no matter how hard I tried, no matter how much I desperately wanted to find solace in their youthful joy, it all felt so distant, so far removed from the deep sorrow that had taken root in my heart. My heart had become a fortress, locked away behind impenetrable walls of profound sorrow, and no matter how much love they offered, it couldn't break through. I would offer a weak smile, but it was nothing more than a hollow gesture, a feeble attempt to reassure them that I was okay, when deep down, I was anything but. The heavy silence between us grew louder with each passing day, a constant, painful reminder of the irreplaceable space that Mrs. Henderson had so suddenly left behind. One quiet afternoon, Mike sat beside me on the worn park bench, his face etched with a deep concern that mirrored my own internal turmoil. He couldn't quite understand why I was still grieving so intensely, why I hadn't been able to simply move on. And in his gentle, well-meaning way, he tried to console me. "Dad, please don't be so sad anymore. Mrs. Henderson wouldn't want you to feel like this." His words, though undoubtedly filled with love and good intentions, stung me deeply. How could he possibly understand? He hadn't experienced the profound depth of loss that now consumed me. "Mike, there are just some things you can't easily put into words," I said, my voice trembling with unspoken grief. "Letting go isn't something you can just easily do. You and Jen are still young. You're still actively finding your way in this vast world. But when someone you love with all your heart is suddenly, inexplicably gone, it feels like the sky itself has fallen, like everything you've ever known and cherished is slipping through your very fingers." Mike fell silent, sensing the immense weight of my heartfelt words. Then, with great care and genuine affection, he reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. "Dad, you still have us, your children and your grandchildren. We'll always be here for you." His words, as warm and comforting as they were intended to be, could not fill the gaping void I felt within my soul. They couldn't chase away the deep, suffocating loneliness that had taken root inside me, a persistent shadow that clung to my every waking moment. "I know you care, Mike," I said softly, my voice barely above a whisper, heavy with unspeakable sorrow. "But sometimes, the emptiness in your heart is something only you can truly understand." A few days later, as I walked slowly through the nursing home's peaceful garden, desperately trying to lose myself in the quiet beauty of nature, I noticed a new resident. He was an older man, his face deeply etched with sorrow, his eyes heavy with the same profound loneliness that had plagued me when I first arrived at this unfamiliar place. I felt a sudden pang of recognition, a deep connection to his palpable pain. I walked over to him slowly, gently placing my hand on his frail shoulder, offering him the same simple comfort I had so desperately longed for myself in those early, desolate days. "Are you new here?" I asked softly, my voice gentle and understanding. "Would you like to take a walk with me?" He looked up at me, and though his lips didn't part to speak, I saw a glimmer of profound gratitude reflected in his weary eyes. We walked together, side by side, in the quiet stillness of the garden, neither of us uttering a single word. But we didn't need to. There was a silent understanding between us, a shared recognition of the heavy weight of our accumulated years and our inevitable losses. We were both just two solitary souls, wandering through the final chapters of our lives, finding what small measure of comfort we could in the simple, unspoken company of one another. That night, as I lay in my bed, the familiar silence of the room enveloping me, I thought of Mrs. Henderson again. Her voice, so soft and kind, seemed to echo gently in my memory. Her warm smile, her gentle touch, those precious moments had become the most cherished memories of my life, and now, they were all I had left of her tangible presence in this world. It was hard, so incredibly hard, to even begin to imagine a life without her vibrant spirit in it. But as I finally closed my eyes, a profound realization washed over me. Even though she was physically gone, a part of her would always remain with me. Her enduring love, her unwavering care, her boundless kindness, they had left an indelible mark on my heart, a mark that could never, ever be erased. And for the first time in a long time, as I lay there in the quiet darkness, the heavy weight of my loneliness didn't feel quite so crushing. It wasn't entirely gone, but it had softened, just a little, a subtle easing of the profound ache. And maybe, just maybe, that small measure of solace was enough for now. Although Mrs. Henderson's sudden passing plunged me into a profound and lingering sadness, the invaluable lesson she imparted to me during her vibrant life will forever remain etched in the deepest recesses of my heart. She taught me something truly profound, something that transcends all else, the vital importance of cherishing every single relationship we encounter in our journey through life, whether it's with our immediate family, our closest friends, or even the seemingly fleeting acquaintances we make along the way. These precious bonds, however small or grand they may seem at the time, are what ultimately fill the empty spaces in our hearts. They are what imbue our lives with true meaning, providing us with much-needed connection, deep understanding, and unwavering comfort when the world around us feels too vast, too overwhelming, or simply too lonely. Each meaningful relationship is like a delicate thread in the intricate tapestry of our lives, beautifully woven together by shared moments of joy, mutual laughter, inevitable struggles, and unconditional love. I can't help but feel, with a profound certainty, that without these vital relationships, our existence would be far emptier, far less vibrant. They are the anchors that ground us in the turbulent storms of life, and in a world where so much feels transient and fleeting, they are among the few constants we can truly rely on. The morning after her passing, I found myself standing in the peaceful garden of the nursing home, the gentle warmth of the sun on my face, yet my heart felt a profound and aching emptiness. I was utterly alone with my thoughts, the soft, gentle breeze whispering mournfully through the swaying trees. It was in that quiet, solitary moment that I truly and deeply understood, nothing in this earthly life lasts forever. But the enduring love we share with others, the genuine, heartfelt moments we create together, will always remain, etched in the annals of our memories. Those precious moments live on vibrantly in our hearts, and when the inevitable storms of life inevitably hit, they serve as an enduring source of inner strength, a poignant reminder that we have lived fully, loved deeply, and given a piece of our very selves to others. That love, despite the relentless passing of time, endures, shining brightly like a steadfast beacon in the darkest of nights, guiding us when we feel utterly lost and adrift. Spiritual strength, I've come to realize with a growing certainty, is what ultimately carries us through the most challenging and heart-wrenching times. Even when life feels like an unrelenting, unbearable weight pressing down on our weary souls, it is this deep, internal strength, fiercely fueled by our enduring love for others and the profound, meaningful connections we've so carefully built, that ultimately propels us forward, one difficult step at a time. The great Japanese author, Haruki Murakami, once wisely said, "I always thought that people age slowly." In reality, people don't just age in a moment, in the blink of an eye. A day has passed, a year has ended, and in the blink of an eye, a lifetime has gone by. Don't think you're still young. One day you suddenly realize that your youth is no longer there. The first gray hairs appear, and your face begins to show small wrinkles. Time goes by, and people indeed age in ways we never truly comprehend until it happens to us. It sneaks up on us, almost unnoticed, like a silent thief in the night, and suddenly, you find yourself standing at a different place in life, a place where time seems to have slipped away without your explicit permission. The quiet realization that you no longer wish to discuss your age comes slowly, like a quiet, almost reluctant acknowledgement that you have irrevocably crossed a significant threshold. As you continue to grow older, the heavy weight of time becomes impossible to ignore. When your own parents begin to age and increasingly need your care and support, you realize with a sudden, startling shock that you have definitively stepped beyond the perceived boundary of youth. The world around you begins to treat you differently, often addressing you as sir or ma'am, and you may feel a subtle pang of discomfort, a quiet resistance, in those fleeting moments. You can no longer deny the undeniable truth: you are no longer considered young. Some may casually say, "What's so scary about aging?" But the stark truth is, as soon as those seemingly flippant words leave your lips, you can feel the undeniable weight of them, a subtle pressure on your chest. It's often a comforting lie, a way to reassure yourself and others that it's not as bad as it might seem. Yet, deep inside, you can feel the unspoken tears beginning to form, a quiet sadness that others may not readily notice. The vibrant world around you seems to quiet down, not because it lacks words or sounds, but because in the shared silence, everyone instinctively knows that there are no remaining words that could possibly offer true, lasting comfort. The profound realization slowly sets in: you've lived a full lifetime, yet in so many fundamental ways, no one can truly understand the unique journey you have walked, the specific mountains you have climbed, the deep valleys you have traversed. You may have a vast network of acquaintances, casual friends, supportive colleagues, so many people in your life, yet how many of them truly understand the deepest parts of you? How many truly listen, with an open heart and mind, to the quiet whispers of your soul? In the end, we often find ourselves profoundly alone in our own thoughts, even when physically surrounded by others. The superficial comfort that people offer, while often well-intentioned, can sometimes feel hollow, a polite gesture meant to fill an awkward silence, but lacking in genuine depth. Sometimes, instead of responding with empty words, we choose to remain silent, not out of bitterness or resentment, but rather out of a quiet recognition that only we ourselves can truly understand the intricate workings of our own hearts. The silence then transforms into a sacred, personal space, where we allow ourselves the precious opportunity to truly listen to the gentle rhythm of our own thoughts and feel the steady pulse of our own unique hearts. When the darkness of night gently falls and the bustling world drifts into a quiet slumber, you may find an unexpected sense of profound peace in the simple sound of your own heartbeat. Alone, yes, but not necessarily lonely. There's a certain liberating freedom in that quiet solitude, a comforting sense of knowing that you no longer desperately need the constant validation or approval of others. Their fleeting worries, their often unsolicited opinions, are no longer a heavy weight upon your weary shoulders. You finally come to trust yourself, to have faith in your own character and sound judgment, more than the often transient opinions of those around you. Time, in its relentless and often unnoticed march, subtly slips by, and as you gracefully age, you begin to realize that the constant noise of the world gradually grows quieter, not because there's nothing left to say, but because there's ultimately nothing more that truly needs to be said. People, in their own quiet way, begin to intuitively understand that sometimes, silence truly speaks volumes, often conveying more profound meaning than any carefully chosen words ever could. How many of the people in your immediate circle truly understand the incredible depth and complexity of your unique life journey? Perhaps few, if any. And at times, you may feel a profound sense of isolation, as though no one is truly and deeply listening to the quiet yearnings of your heart. But perhaps, just perhaps, that's perfectly okay. The often superficial words of comfort can sometimes mask a deeper, more fundamental truth, a truth we ourselves may be unwilling to consciously confront. So, you often choose the quiet solace of silence. It is in that profound stillness that you can finally find a sense of true clarity, a deeper, more meaningful connection with your own authentic self. Only then can you truly hear the quiet whispers of your own heart, your truest thoughts, without the constant interference of external noise and opinions. adversity often feels far more prevalent in our lives than any perceived advantage we might possess. Life is undeniably full of struggles, and sometimes, despite our best efforts, it can feel as though failure is the only inevitable outcome. But through it all, through the inevitable ups and downs, we gradually learn to accept the profound truth that there are simply some forces in this vast universe that are ultimately beyond our control. And in that quiet acceptance, there is a surprising sense of profound peace. You begin to truly realize that as long as you have given your absolute best effort, poured your heart and soul into a task, you can hold your head high, free from the heavy burden of shame or regret. The deep self-respect you gain through this process is not one of arrogant pride, but rather one of quiet humility. You recognize the inherent goodness within yourself, but instead of allowing it to inflate your ego, you carry it with a quiet grace. Humility gradually becomes an intrinsic part of your very essence, and in turn, it makes you even more worthy of the genuine respect of others. As time continues its relentless passage, you can't help but subtly notice the profound changes that have occurred within yourself. They are often subtle, almost imperceptible at times, like the slow turning of the seasons, but they are undeniably there. You have undeniably transformed with the passage of time, and while the world continues its constant and often chaotic change around you, one fundamental truth becomes crystal clear: you have become so much more than you ever thought was truly possible. The accumulated years, the challenging struggles, the soaring joys, they have all collectively shaped you into the person you are today. And now, you stand stronger, wiser, and far more deeply aware of the simple, fleeting beauty that life, in its unpredictable nature, has to offer. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 3 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Old age has been a relentless yet invaluable teacher in my life, profoundly reshaping my spirit, deepening my understanding of the intricate tapestry of life, and most profoundly, transforming my very view of love. I once naively thought love was a simple and pure emotion, something that could be easily captured in the idyllic image of two people holding hands, steadfastly never letting go, and gracefully growing old together, side by side, forever. I firmly believed that love was the unwavering anchor that would keep us grounded through life's inevitable storms, and that nothing could ever truly shake its steadfast foundation, no matter how relentlessly time marched on. But as the years have gently unfolded, revealing life's bittersweet complexities, I've come to see a deeper, more nuanced truth. Many relationships, however beautiful and intense they may feel in the moment, are ultimately fleeting, like the delicate petals of a vibrant flower that blooms brightly in the spring sunshine but fades all too quickly with the changing seasons. They are often temporary, more about the precious moments we share than the imagined eternity we once so confidently envisioned. Life moves with such incredible speed and relentless momentum that the distinct lines between the past, the present, and the future begin to blur and subtly intertwine. We realize, often with a quiet ache in our hearts, that the people who once felt so utterly irreplaceable in our lives, those who seemed like the very pillars upon which our world rested, have either fundamentally changed over time or simply drifted away on the currents of life. Even our most cherished memories, once so vibrant and full of vivid color, gradually begin to lose their sharp focus and fade with the relentless passage of time. The more you live, the more you inevitably come to understand that life, in all its breathtaking beauty and intricate complexity, can be both a profound source of immense joy and a wellspring of deep, inconsolable sorrow. There are times, especially in the darkest depths of your soul, when accepting this fundamental truth feels utterly impossible, a painful contradiction. You may struggle mightily to make peace with this inherent duality, yet there's an undeniable sense of quiet calm that eventually washes over you with the profound realization that not everything in this life is meant to remain unchanged, frozen in time. Some things, once seemingly perfect in our subjective eyes, simply lose their initial luster and appeal, and we are ultimately left with no real choice but to gently release them, to let them gracefully go. The small, insignificant things that once bothered you, the fleeting moments you would have previously spent criticizing or desperately trying to change, gradually begin to fade into the background, losing their perceived importance. you come to the simple yet profound realization that some things in life just are, and no amount of fervent wishing or desperate longing can ever truly alter their fundamental existence. Life, in its unpredictable nature, doesn't politely ask for your permission to change. It simply does, often without warning or explanation. People you once trusted will inevitably disappoint you, and you, in turn, will undoubtedly disappoint yourself at times. It's a difficult truth to fully accept, but the reality is that we sometimes give far too much of our precious selves to others, pouring out our energy and emotions, and in return, we often end up feeling inexplicably empty, as though our kindness was simply taken for granted, an endless resource to be freely exploited. People who once desperately needed your unwavering support may now mistakenly think that your love and care are guaranteed, a constant, unwavering presence, as though it's an inherent right they can always and forever rely on. I've learned, sometimes through painful and heartbreaking experiences, that I must consciously choose to treat myself with far more kindness and compassion. I must learn to guard my own vulnerable heart more fiercely and, when absolutely necessary for my own emotional well-being, be a little more reserved, a little less readily available, even a little colder toward others to ultimately preserve my own fragile sense of inner peace. As relentless time continues its steady march forward, you begin to see that disappointment isn't just a fleeting feeling, a momentary setback. It's often a constant companion on the long and winding journey of life. The more deeply you pour your heart and soul into something you truly care about, the more inherently vulnerable you inevitably become to the potential of being let down, of having your hopes dashed. And yet, there's a strange, almost paradoxical beauty to that inherent vulnerability, because it serves as a poignant reminder that you are still truly alive, still actively hoping, still reaching for something better, something more meaningful in this often unpredictable world. With the passage of time, I've come to realize that it's ultimately foolish and self-defeating to place all of your precious hopes and dreams in just one single place, to invest all your emotional energy in a singular outcome. Hope, while undeniably powerful and essential, can also be a profound source of deep disappointment if not carefully balanced with a healthy dose of acceptance. It's in this delicate realization that you begin to learn the intricate and often challenging dance between actively hoping for the best and gracefully accepting whatever the universe ultimately decides to deliver. There are undoubtedly moments in life when you must push forward with every ounce of your strength and determination, clinging fiercely to your aspirations. But there are also equally important moments when you must possess the wisdom and self-awareness to know when to gracefully step back, take a deep, calming breath, and simply allow things to unfold naturally, without your constant, often anxious, intervention. The real secret to navigating this complex dance lies in learning how to skillfully balance these two seemingly opposing forces: unwavering hope and quiet acceptance. And when you finally master this delicate equilibrium, you gradually stop worrying so much about the ultimate outcome. What truly matters in the grand scheme of things is not necessarily what you ultimately gain or lose in the material sense, but rather how you carry yourself through the inevitable challenges, how you maintain your inner grace, and how you steadfastly keep moving forward, one deliberate step at a time, no matter the formidable obstacles that life unexpectedly throws your way. In the end, after everything, after all the intense love, the profound loss, the soaring hope, and the inevitable disappointment, I've come to understand one profound and fundamental truth: the only truly reliable way to avoid ultimate failure in life is to learn to consistently rely on yourself. While it's undoubtedly comforting and often necessary to have the unwavering support of others in our lives, there's an even deeper, quieter, and ultimately more empowering strength that comes from cultivating true self-sufficiency, from knowing, deep down in your soul, that in the end, you are the one person who will always, without fail, be there for you. When the world around you feels uncertain and chaotic, and when you feel as though you have absolutely no one else to turn to, you will ultimately discover just how incredibly strong and resilient you truly are. This is the pivotal moment when you rise, not because you feel you have to, but because you finally realize that you have always possessed the inherent strength within you. And that profound self-reliance, more than anything else in this unpredictable world, is the most precious and enduring gift you can ever give to yourself. As we gently reach the end of this heartfelt reflection, I sincerely invite you to think deeply about the invaluable lessons you've gleaned from these shared life experiences. Life, in its intricate beauty and inherent challenges, teaches us so much about the enduring power of love, the inevitable sting of loss, the unwavering strength of hope, and the incredible resilience that lies dormant within each and every one of us. What specific aspect of Bob's story has resonated most deeply with you today? What is the one key lesson you will consciously take away from this video, and how do you envision putting it into practical application in your own life moving forward? I would genuinely love to hear your thoughtful insights. Please feel free to share one specific thing you've learned and how it will influence your actions in the future in the comments section below. Your valuable insights can undoubtedly inspire and encourage others who are also navigating their own unique journeys through life. If you found value and connection in this video, please take a moment to leave your thoughtful comment below, and please don't forget to give it a thumbs up to show your support. If you haven't already, I would be incredibly grateful if you would consider subscribing to our channel for more content like this and hitting that notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I eagerly look forward to seeing you in the next video.